I'm hiring another doctor, but I'm taking it on the jaw right now and not burning myself out. But if this was how I was going to operate, I would burn myself out. But I'm doing it for a season because I need to push right now to get us through that gap, get us to the bridge point. All right, my friends, the Ultimate OD Podcast. This is a very good episode for you to sit back as the owner of your practice and see if you're making progress. See if you're coasting or if you're just avoiding what needs to be done, or if you're grinding out with the ultimate destination being burnout. Where are you at? How can you improve? How can we be the CEOs of our practices? We have a closing thought of the episode. This is the Ultimate OD Podcast. Here we go. All right, my friends, the Ultimate OD Podcast. Thank you for the likes, the listens. Got some emails I'll get back to you on. I'm heading out to spring break. So I'll have some time to just reflect, recharge, get you some answers, and have some new insight on where we're going to go for the rest of the year. We've had a good start. Really good start. I think this month of March has been one of our best months ever. So things are happening. We're growing. We're expanding. I just want to keep the momentum going. And that's kind of what I'm talking about in this episode. This episode is a great mindset shift no matter where you're at in your practice, but especially as an owner. With that CEO mindset, we have got to think like I'm going to talk about. And the analogy I want to give you is everyone has heard like we're trying to climb the mountain. We're trying to get to the peak. And the problem is we think that the peak is where we need to get to, that the peak is the answer. But at the end of the day, you're at the peak for like a moment, right? You spend the majority of your time on the sides of the mountain. Are you embracing the sides of the mountain, embracing the journey? Because if you're living for the peak, it's the arrival fallacy. You're going to get there and it's going to last a moment and then you're going to be lost. Okay, and we're going to talk about what that means as an owner of your practice. And if you don't understand this concept, that you're living on the sides of the mountain, you're going to burn yourself out, get frustrated, stall out, and quit. Too often, this is where we shut it down, right? Where people fail on their journey to be great. So what I want us to realize is that the game that we're playing, the game that we need to learn is that to live on the mountain, you need to know when to push, when to pull back, but just make sure that you never stop moving forward. There's different paces of climbing, but you got to have that momentum. So let's bring this back to the mountain, okay? The peak is, in my mind, owning a practice. The peak was getting to $1 million. The peak was having a second office, having another associate, getting to 2 million. Like these are peaks that I've put out there in the past, and it's in the past probably year that I've realized that you chase the peak, you get it, and you're like, okay, what's next? The life I'm living right now, I would have loved to have 6 months to a year ago, right? That's what my goal was. But I've gotten better at realizing this is a journey. How do I organize my life to be the life I want to live with intention, doing the things that I want to do, and still moving forward, living on the sides of that mountain? Now, I still have peaks. It's not saying that you shouldn't have goals, okay? But they're different. So, in reality, let's think about this. 5% of the time, you're going to hit a peak. We've talked about that. We just touched on a bunch of them. I know you have things that you want to accomplish. If you're an associate, you want to hit a $1,000 revenue per patient per month. Great, you did it. Now what? Do it again. It's just one of those things that's not fulfilling. Let's give some breakdown, some examples here. You open your practice, you start cold. That's a peak. The mountain is months of figuring out the schedule, marketing, systems to operate. That took me 15 years. right? Peak. Hire a great employee. We've all had that great employee. Know what the mountain is? Getting them to perform consistently, developing them, getting them to grow, stay motivated, still operate at the level that you expect, right? The old way I used to think is, this is really hard. What am I doing wrong? And at this point, maybe I'm jaded, maybe I'm just numb to it, but hard is a feature, not a bug. Hard is what is expected. That's what we're signing up for. And the quicker you realize that, the better, because that's going to keep you climbing, moving forward. Because if you keep thinking that something's wrong when it gets hard, or you have a setback or pushback or resistance, you're going to burn out. You're going to want to quit. So many doctors I talk to and see, and they're just like, it's not what it is. The insurances are doing this to us. You can't make money when there's Costco's or 1-800 contacts in the world. No one's ever going to pay for this or that. They see hard as a stopping point, a dead end, do not pass go, right? You have to view these things like staff conflict, chance for you to be a better leader, patients pushing back on you, better marketing, better value, better business, right? You should have some pushback. If 20% of the people aren't pushing back on your pricing or what you're doing, you're not pushing hard enough. We'll talk about that. Revenue dips, right? When I first hired my first associate, I made the mistake of trying to make her a duplicate of me. Not going to happen. Revenue was not where I wanted to be. But since I've taken a step back, designed the office to support her, put a team in place to support her, I've gotten better. She's gotten better. The office operates better because I was the bottleneck. I was operating at a very high pace, high energy, but it was inefficient. Because of how things have unfolded, the past 6 months, I was operating with way less volume in terms of comprehensives, and my revenue per patient was the highest it's ever been. We have so many people trying to get in February, March, beginning of the year, first quarter, that I went back to scheduling as aggressively as I did a year ago. And yes, I'm producing revenue, but my revenue per patient is down. My associate, who has stayed the same, is producing about the same, doing half the effort. Not half the effort clinically, but volume-wise. My eyes have been open. I am going back to how I was operating. And that could be a mindset breaker for some of us. But it's me recognizing that this is the better, more efficient system. And if I wouldn't have taken a step back and really looked at it, I would have kept doing what I was doing and thinking it was the only way. So what you need to get your mindset around is, don't live for the peaks, because you're going to feel behind, you're going to be dissatisfied, and burnout is going to be the destination. That's going to be your final peak. Okay? Great owners expect the problems. We don't panic. We solve them. Okay? Everything feels hard. That's not failure. That's the business. That's what we are doing. When the barrier to entry is hard, when there's difficulty, you should embrace it, because that means the weak are going to fold. The people that don't want to put in the effort, that don't understand that, are going to get out. That gives you an unfair advantage because you expect hard. The mountain doesn't reward hype. It rewards people who keep climbing. So let's talk about that. And this goes back to intensity versus recovery. Most ODs don't struggle because they're lazy. We struggle because we mismanage our energy. Perfect example of me trying to see 20 comps, 25 comps a day. So much effort and energy for the same amount of output. My associate seeing half as much matching my revenue. Now, there's a reason I'm doing it, because I don't want to lose the patients that I worked so hard to gather to another office because we were busy for a period. I'm hiring another doctor, but I'm taking it on the jaw right now and not burning myself out. But if this was how I was going to operate, I would burn myself out. But I'm doing it for a season because I need to push right now to get us through that gap, get us to the bridge point. But it's not the best way. And this is how we need to understand sprinting versus sustaining. When you start a practice, you want to go through a growth phase. When I first opened up the new location and brought on the new doctor, doubled our overhead, doubled our staff, had to support the other doctor, I knew I was going to have to push really hard. But thankfully, I had enough foresight to get us through that phase and get us to be better. I knew I could figure it out. Eternal optimism out of me. I'm realistic and think it's going to be difficult, but I know that I will overcome. That's what I'm doing right now this first quarter. I am seeing so many stinking refractions. It's a blessing and a curse. It's a blessing because I have so many people that want to see me, but it sucks because it's a regression to where I was. It's not as efficient as it could be, not as productive or profitable. And it sucks, right? It's hard, but it's a sprint phase, okay? Know that you're going to have higher focus in this time, long hours, you have to make fast decisions. You accept the short-term stress. The key is to accept that this sprint is a tool. It's not a lifestyle. And that's where so many people fail, is they think that this is going to be the only way. This is how we operate. They're not looking for off-ramps. At the same time, your stability, your sustaining mode is when you're running operations, building systems, training your team, being strategic. I like this phase. But this phase is great for a season, for a moment. Controlled pace, you can delegate, you're consistent, lower emotional swings, but you can't live in that area either. You're going to think that stability means success. When you're leaving meat on the bone, you're not as good as you can be. The key, the superpower that you have to learn as the CEO, going from that owner-operator to the CEO, is being able to switch. Know when you're in a sprint phase and know when you're in a sustain phase. When I first started, probably for the majority of my career, I was always on. Constant intensity, micromanaging, and just trying to burn myself out. Doing everything I could. And every day felt like an emergency. We got to go. Get everyone ready to go. Whereas what I saw the sustain phase was, and even when I set aside time on my Thursdays and Fridays and I wasn't seeing patients, I felt like I was avoiding pressure, avoiding hard decisions. Always staying comfortable, but stuck where I was at. And I only did that for a season. And I didn't realize that when you make the most of that time, that's when you get your biggest growth. You get an idea, you get a vision, and then you got to sprint. Take a step back, sustain, new strategy, collect yourself, sprint. I think the key to this is knowing what you are inherently. I am constantly that type 1 sprint guy. My benefit, my biggest gains come when I take a step back and I look at sustaining. What can I do over there? If you are someone that's more calm, even keeled, you get stuck in just being stable, you need to look at that intensity mode and be like, when am I going to push? When am I going to turn it on? Knowing when to be in each mode is crucial to success. And the ability to toggle between them is what makes you great. I am literally just learning that sustain phase. Because even with us being successful, booked out for more than I'd like, and I only say it because I'm trying to fix it. I'm trying to get another doctor on. I can't really grow extensively because there's no room on the schedule. All the things I'm trying to implement and do need the other doctor to be here. So it's a great time to be strategic, but it's hard for me. I feel like I'm not doing anything, like I'm being lazy, right? Know where you like to be, know what you like to do. The next level isn't more of what you're good at, it's more of what you're avoiding. And honestly, that's what I was avoiding. Okay, so ask yourself these questions. Am I tired because I'm working too hard or because I'm avoiding what matters? Do I need to push right now or recover so I can think clearly? As the CEO, energy is something you allocate. It's not something that you constantly burn. You can't win by going hard all the time. You win by going hard at the right times. That is strategic planning, and it's hard because you never really are sure if it's the right time, but you get a better feel the more you toggle back and forth. And something I've come to accept is that recovery feels good after a hard effort, but it feels awful and like guilt when you're avoiding something you need to do. So think about that. What scenarios are you in? So we've talked about where we live. We live on the sides of the mountain. The mountain is reality, right? Managing intensity is the skill. The next question you have to ask yourself is, how do you move forward? How do you keep every day being productive? And the answer to that is from a book, and this all has come from a book I read, Pursuing Excellence. I forget the author, but the goal is not having a 0 day. 0 days are what kill you. And 0 days, avoiding 0 days, isn't about grinding, not stop. It's about never losing forward momentum. Never getting to a point that you're not moving towards that big vision. And it doesn't have to be huge. I mean, from a clinical context, one way you can explain dry eye better. A better way of doing workups or checking in patients. Making exam efficiency a little bit better. Increasing patient value in your office. From a business standpoint, what's one KPI you want to get better at? One KPI you're going to focus on. One issue that you're going to just put all your energy towards this quarter. One real staff conversation. Someone that's been pushing back that you've been avoiding this conversation because they're good enough, or they're your best employee. And you sit down and talk to them and say, this is why you're not going to get another raise, or where you're losing value. Leadership. Think about one mistake you've made, where you've lost sight of the bigger picture, where you're making a strategic move that doesn't align with the vision that you put out there. Try to find a way to sharpen your thinking, to give yourself more time to be productive. What do they call that? Deep work, right? And the mistake I have had to overcome is thinking that rest means it's a 0 day. Rest does not mean 0 day. When you're intentional with rest, it helps your performance, which is crazy to think about, isn't it? When you lift weights, you don't get muscle growth in the moment. The growth happens the next few days when your body's repairing itself and getting the rest it needs to grow. How can you be productive in how you do that? Are you fueling properly? Right? 0 days are avoiding things, drifting away from your vision, or loss of control of an area that you want to improve. That can be multiple things. But that's what a 0 day is. It's not necessarily rest. That's hard for us type 1 sprinters. A 0 day does not recharge you. It disconnects you from your vision. So why does this matter to you? Most doctors get to a certain point and it's really easy to plateau. I've hit a certain income, everything's comfortable, I'm just going to plateau out because I'm good enough. In a busy clinic, you can really, really, really hide from growth. You can say, we're busy. This is where all our energy is. We can't possibly grow. We're at our wits' end. Or we've maxed out our potential. There's so much meat on the bone right there. And it's all being left there because you're avoiding what you need to do. And you're working all day and getting nowhere. You're not failing. You're just not improving. That's when I look around at some of the OGs, the older docs, that's where I think they're at. They've hit a good point in their life. They're comfortable. And they will talk themselves into adding a piece of equipment or changing up something different, and we're good enough. We're still trying to grow. This is the growth. But they're not implementing the new device. They're not selling it and marketing it. They're not getting the team up to speed. And it's a very expensive coat hanger, collecting dust. Our job as CEO is to always protect the direction of the business, not just the effort. Where are we moving towards? You don't need a perfect day. You just need one that's going in the right direction. And that's hard for us to think about because we want big wins. We want big, tangible things that you can go to a conference at and tell your friends, this is what I've done. I'm up 30% year over year. But the office that is massive, that had those big wins, had those peaks, that is still getting better, 5 to 10% every single year, that's a behemoth. That's where we want to be. They have not given up. They're still improving. Don't be stagnant. So this is where we have to operate like CEOs of our businesses, okay? Mountain is what we expect in reality. Push versus recover. That's how we manage our energy. And then no 0 days. Always moving forward in the right direction. You can be making progress, but if it's not towards your vision, what is the point? And that's where I've had to really take a step back and stop being a clinician. Not even being an owner, but being a CEO. And it's so hard because you don't get the tangible feedback that you do as that clinician, as the owner. We're winning big. Having the best month that we've ever had. And I'm looking at my numbers wondering, why am I so inefficient right now? And as the CEO, I said, hey, Dr. Lilly, you have to step up right here and try and keep as many patients in the system, in the ecosystem, as you can to bridge the gap until the new doctor comes. But it doesn't feel as good because I'm like, I should be more productive. The other doctor doing as much as me, that's a sense of where I should be proud. That's us moving forward. That's us having huge, big growth. But it's not the same joy because I put so much emphasis on that one peak. I'm sure you guys are doing this too. And if you're getting ready to add another doctor, if you're getting ready to expand your business, I'm sure you've had these conversations. How are you getting through? How are you reframing success in your mind? These are all good questions to ask. And again, like I said, I'm about to go on spring break with my family and just sit and think about these things. Where's the next steps? When I have a chance to be away and think about those things, I get juiced up and excited. When I get into the day-to-day, when I get lost in that busyness, I lose sight of the vision. Now, thankfully, I've set up my schedule, my life, where end of the week I can take a step back and look at the big picture, but it has to be intentional. So remember, you live on the mountain, push when it matters, and you never let a day go to zero. This is the name of the game. This is you being the CEO of your practice. So for all of us, for me, when I go away and take a step back, I have to ask myself these questions. Where am I off right now? What reality am I fighting? I kind of mentioned it right there, that I'm running a business, not trying to be the best producer. Am I burned out or am I coasting? Not burned out, not coasting. I think I'm actually doing a good job there. Am I letting days slip? I think I've been very good about getting that 1% better, of just improving a little bit to go in the right direction. But that fighting reality, what the new reality of the business I created is, and what I'm willing to accept is what I'm working on right now. Let me know where you're at. I think that the end of the first quarter, it's a great time to take a step back and reevaluate where you've been and where you want to go. I'm looking forward to those emails, those comments, those likes. We'll have more for you next week. Where has the time gone? We are to the closing thought of the episode, and I will leave you with this from Simon Sinek. The courage of leadership is giving others the chance to succeed, even though you bear the responsibility for getting things done. Man, that's a tough pill to swallow. But that is leadership to a T. We're ultimately in charge, but you got to give your people, your team, the tools, the resources, the ability to succeed. Because when they do, your business is better, your staff's morale is better, and you are a better leader. It's simple, but it's hard to do. Dr. Lily